its evacuation operation to bring back citizens from Sudan. And that, of course, is very good news for anxious families. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar informed today that Operation Kaveri is underway to evacuate Indians stranded in Khartoum. Sharing pictures of the operation, the minister tweeted that about 500 Indians have reached Port Sudan and more are on the way. Indian ships and aircrafts are set to bring stranded Indians back home. 5 Indian nationals were also evacuated through French Air Force flight and were brought to France's military base in Djibouti. Here's a special report.
A sigh of relief. These are pictures of the lucky few who have been rescued from war-torn Sudan. Countries across the world are scrambling to evacuate their citizens. It's easier said than done, given the non-stop firing in the country.
شوارع قتلى للأسف يعني حتى تم المصنع عندي التكسير والسرقة والحمد لله رب العالمين يعني مش عارفين شو نحكي بالظروف اللي شفناها لأنه ما شفناها بحياتنا.
The Sudanese army and the paramilitary force, the RSF, are at war with each other for the last 10 days. Over 400 are dead, many are injured. It's 41 degrees. People in Khartoum, the capital, are running out of food and water. At the heart of this civil war in Africa's third largest country are these two men. Sudan's military leader, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, and the commander of the Rapid Support Forces, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. It's a case of friends turned foes. Until recently, the two worked as allies. In 2019, they ousted Sudanese president and autocrat Omar al-Bashir, who had led the country for nearly 30 years. They also played a pivotal role in the subsequent military coup in 2021. After Bashir's ouster, Sudan was ruled by an uneasy alliance between the military and civilian groups. In 2021, the power-sharing government was dissolved by the armed forces. And now, Sudan's military leader and the paramilitary chief are at odds, both vying for control of the nation. The fight is a result of negotiations breaking down over the merging of the two forces. There was disagreement too over which general would be subordinate to the other and how quickly the RSF would merge with the Sudanese army. Multiple attempts at a ceasefire have failed. Both blame each other. For now, shelling is the order of the day on the streets of Khartoum, the epicenter of this raging civil war. Hospitals are overflowing with the stench of death, and the men, these two men in uniform, are in standoff positions. The question now is, what will break this deadlock? And more importantly, when?
Joining me here on the program, former diplomat Ashok Sajjanhar. Very good evening, Ambassador Sajjanhar. Thank you for joining us here on Mirror Now. Is Ambassador Sajjanhar with us? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us. I want to begin by asking you, Ambassador Sajjanhar, typically in such situations, what are the challenges faced by embassies abroad? Since I imagine that the embassy becomes, the repository of all hope for the stranded individuals. I'll go into why this internal strife has happened in Sudan. But before that, let's first talk about our challenges here.
Okay, the first challenge, Afrida, in situations like this, particularly in small countries where we have small missions. Normally, in a place like Sudan, I would imagine our embassy would be very, very small. We would have one ambassador, maybe one second secretary rank officer, either from the MEA or from some other department, and possibly one or two other support staff. So the Indian-based personnel would be very, very few. The rest would be, in terms of the local workers, in terms of driver, in terms of messengers, they would all be local people. So the structure is very small. So in that sense, the capacity to be able to reach out and to deliver some support or help or services, that also tends to become rather limited. The other aspect that we can see in this case is, it is not as if the ambassador is living on the premises of the embassy or any other officer is staying on the premises. And since this, conflict this started on the 15th, which was sort of a weekend, Friday, starting of the weekend. So there's hardly anyone in the embassy at all for the last so many days, because movement within Khartoum has become so very difficult. So all the people in the embassy, all India-based staff and also the local personnel, they would be operating from their homes, from their residences, and trying to get in touch with the people. And of course, we have found, you mentioned yourself about the shortage of water, shortage of food, etc. But there's also, as far as electricity is concerned and internet is concerned, that also has not been regular. There's been irregular and it has been going off. So in that sense, establishing communication becomes extremely difficult. So I think there are huge challenges for the embassy personnel themselves. They would also be facing shortages of food and water. So while taking care of themselves, also providing to the others who are stranded in different parts of the country. And it's a huge country. I think we need to recognize that also.
Yes, and again, I want to also ask you that in a situation like this, is an effort made to sort of collaborate with other affected nations? Is there an attempt to sort of launch a joint sort of a mission to evacuate? Because it's not just India, there are other nationalities there as well.
Yeah, you are very right, Afrida. And, definitely in terms of exchange of communication, because it's a very, the bonhomie and the camaraderie between the different embassies, ambassadors, etc., is very strong, even under normal circumstances. And circumstances of this nature, definitely it would become much stronger. And I think in addition to that, India has a very good standing, whether it is Africa or otherwise, because you would have seen that wherever calamities have taken place, whether it was Yemen or Nepal or other places, when India has been asked to evacuate its own people, its own citizens, we have not hesitated in taking citizens of other countries. Even you would recall of developed countries when, we were evacuating our people by ship from Yemen, then even the embassies of UK, USA, they would say that contact the Indian embassy and seek their assistance, help and support. So India has been reaching out to these countries. So that stands you in very good stead in instances of such nature. And of course, to respond to your question that you had, yes, there is a good interaction, and all embassies and all such support systems tend to work together.
Right. In terms of what has triggered this, what has led to this is again, from what we can see by all accounts, an internal battle for supremacy between two military groups after they've ousted the previous president together, and then of course this sort of internal fight erupts. Now, what happens next for a country like Sudan?
I think both these groups, and you brought it out very well, that, the army chief, that is General Burhan, and also his deputy General Dagalo, who's also known as Hemeti, that they are, engaging in this fight literally to the finish, because General Burhan, he has been the army chief, and the other gentleman, General Dagalo, has been his deputy. And so when they seized power in 2021 from that interim democratic structure, then General Burhan became the president, and his deputy, he became the vice president. But then it was decided that in the middle of April, there would be a movement towards democratic rule. So they would have to give up power or become just, head, not be president and vice president, but head of the army, and how this RSF would merge into the regular armed forces. And in that context, it is the Deputy Chief, General Dagalo Hemeti. He saw that he didn't want to stay in the number 2 position forever. And he thought that he enjoys strong power because he comes from Darfur. He is in charge of very many militias, Janjaweed, and these militia have been known to be very violent and not really given into much discipline. So he launched this offensive on the 15th of April, in with full confidence that he will be able to vanquish General Burhan and be able to seize power. And that is why you see that General Burhan's, the army chiefs, his stronghold is in Khartoum, is in the capital, while General Dagalo's stronghold is in the west of the country in Darfur. So much of the action is really taking place in Khartoum because General Dagalo Hemeti, he wants to seize power there, wants to seize the ministerial establishments, the presidential office, the airport, the media establishments, etc. So I think it will continue because General Dagalo has seen that he has come as close to seizing power as he possibly can ever, and he will never get an opportunity of this nature again. So I think he will continue to fight till the time he is vanquished or he is able to assume control. Afrida.
How that can happen, how long it will be, it could be a long-drawn process for all we know. Ambassador Ashok Sajjana, thank you so much for joining me here on the program, giving us clarity on the subject.
Thank you, Afrida. Thank you.
All right, it's time now to turn our focus back to domestic news.